Along the rivers of southern Iraq, something ancient is happening right now. A man in a long white robe is standing waist-deep in muddy water. He's not alone. There are dozens of them, men, women, children, all in white, all silent, all facing the current. No pews. No building. No cross. Just the river, the sky, and words being spoken in a language that hasn't changed since before Jesus walked the earth. Their name is the Mandaeans. And almost nobody in the Western world knows they exist, not because their story isn't extraordinary, but because nobody has told it properly yet. Most people have never considered that a religion might exist that predates Islam and traces its roots to the very birth of Christianity, not as a branch of it, but running alongside it, independently, from the very beginning, and traces its origins further back than either. The Mandaeans do exactly that. They were performing this exact river baptism ritual when Rome still ruled the known world. When the first Gospels were still being written. When the language of Jesus was still alive on the streets. And somehow, they survived. The Persians. The Arabs. The Ottomans. Saddam Hussein. ISIS. Every single one of them. Failed. But something is finishing what every empire failed to do. Not from war. Not from a dictator. From something quieter, something more invisible. And the people responsible? They don't even know they're doing it. The story begins not in Iraq. Not in the marshes. But somewhere much older than either. The Mandaeans call themselves the followers of John. Not John the Apostle. John the Baptist. The man standing in the river. The man was pouring water over heads. To the Mandaeans, he wasn't a supporting character in someone else's story. He was the prophet. The central figure. The one who understood that moving water, living water, was the closest thing on earth to the divine. That belief has never changed. Not once. In 2,000 years. They built their lives around rivers. The Tigris. The Euphrates. The marshlands of southern Iraq where the two rivers bleed into each other and the land turns soft and ancient and quiet. For centuries, they worked as goldsmiths and silversmiths, a tradition so specific, so consistent, that in Iraq, Mandaeans became so synonymous with their craft that the colloquial Arabic word for them, Abba, carried the mark of their faith and their hands simultaneously. Their craftsmanship was legendary. Empires that hated them still bought their jewelry. Their priests, called Ganzibras, memorized texts so old that scholars are still arguing about what some passages mean. Their holy book, the Ginza Rabbah, the Great Treasure, is written in a script that has no living cousins. It didn't branch off from Arabic. It didn't follow Hebrew. It preserved itself in such complete isolation that it developed into something scholars still struggle to fully classify, like a language that grew up alone in a room and came out speaking something entirely its own. At home, Mandaean life looks deceptively ordinary. Families gathering. Food being cooked. Children doing homework. But underneath that surface, every meal, every celebration, every major life moment is threaded through with ritual purity laws so detailed, so demanding, that living them fully requires an almost superhuman level of daily intention. Purity isn't a Sunday thing for Mandaeans. It's every single morning. Quick one, if this is the kind of content you want more of, hit like. And drop your country in the comments, genuinely want to know where this is reaching. The thing that actually keeps Mandaean elders awake at night isn't a government. It isn't a militia. It's a zip code. When the 2003 Iraq War collapsed the country's fragile social order, the Mandaeans were among the most vulnerable communities on the ground. They are pacifists, completely, doctrinally, non-negotiably. They cannot carry weapons. Their faith forbids it. So when sectarian violence exploded across Iraq and every community reached for guns to protect itself, the Mandaeans had nothing. No militia. No armed faction. No political party with weapons. Just their faith and their rivers and 2,000 years of survival instinct. They ran. Within a decade, over 80% of Iraq's Mandaean population had fled the country. Some estimates say 90. Fewer than 5,000 remain inside Iraq today. A community that had survived every empire, every conquest, every forced conversion attempt, scattered across the globe in a single generation. Sydney, Detroit, Stockholm, Toronto. Cities that have never heard a Mandaic prayer suddenly had Mandaean families learning what snow feels like. And here is where the twist cuts deepest. The diaspora saved their lives. But it is slowly dissolving their world. Because Mandaean religious law requires running water for baptism. Real, flowing, living water. A bathtub doesn't count. A swimming pool doesn't count. A lake doesn't count. You need a river. Specifically, you need a clean river. And Detroit doesn't have one. Stockholm's rivers freeze. Sydney's are hours away for most families. A religion built entirely around a river, now scattered among millions of people living nowhere near one. Their children are growing up in the suburbs. Speaking English. Making friends outside the faith. And the elders watch, quietly, doing the math that no one wants to do out loud. The elders know the math. But they also know something the math cannot measure. Survival is not the same as disappearing quietly. In Detroit, a Mandaean family drives 40 minutes every month to reach a stretch of the Clinton River or the River Raisin clean enough for baptism. 40 minutes each way. In the cold. With children who have homework due Monday. They do it anyway. In Stockholm, a Ganzibra priest has spent 3 years petitioning local authorities to designate a section of river for religious use. 3 years of paperwork. 3 years of explaining to Swedish bureaucrats what living water means to a faith they have never heard of. In Sydney, Mandaean women are teaching their daughters the ancient hymns in living rooms, in kitchens, in the car on the way to school, because if the language doesn't live in the home, it won't live anywhere. This is what 2,000 years of survival actually looks like. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just a family in a minivan. A priest and a stack of forms. A mother humming something ancient while the kettle boils. The Mandaeans never built cathedrals. They never launched crusades. They never sent missionaries. They just stayed close to the water and kept speaking the words. And somehow that was enough, through every empire, every exile, every attempt to make them into something they were not. The question now isn't whether the Mandaeans survived history. They did. Undeniably, extraordinarily, they did. The question is whether the modern world, not through violence, but through comfort and distance and time, will finally accomplish what no empire could. They're still in the water. Still saying the words. Still here. Quick one, if this is the kind of content you want more of, hit like. And drop your country in the comments, genuinely want to know where this is reaching. And if you think that story is rare, wait until you see what's been quietly surviving in a Syrian mountain village that speaks a language the world has been calling dead for centuries. They weren't supposed to survive. This secret village still speaks like Jesus.